A note on textures, you may want it to be white, but for your design, you might actually need your texture to be colored. And in that case, you can color it um, in InDesign by layering a color on top. Let me just show you an example. So we have this, and now if I put a box on top of this, and I color it, but then I add a blending mode to this color. So we can see the texture through the color, and that works out pretty well. Here you can actually see how the different blending modes are working more than on the previous example that I showed you. But this really works only if it works whatever color it is, but it will work the best if your texture actually is white. Sometimes your texture won't be white, in which case you would use Photoshop actually to color the texture, and then you could bring that colored texture back into InDesign. And let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to start a new document. I want it to be in inches. I want this to be 6 by 9. And I want this to have resolution of 300. And I'm going to label this texture. And I'm going to hit create. Now, we're not necessarily going to use the entire document, but it's good to just use the document that we have. And let's find a texture. I was on Adobe Fonts looking for some fonts, and let's find the texture of fur. Because let's look for pink fur. Okay, so this is it's definitely textured, and I'm going to copy this and paste it into Photoshop. Now you could probably find the texture and the color that you're actually looking for, but let's say we want this color, we want this texture, but we don't want the color. What we can do is edit this, and I'm going to edit it in a non-destructive way, which means I'm going to use adjustment layers. I'm going to find this icon right here. It looks like a black and white cookie, and if I click on it, I get all of these adjustment layers. If I hold down Use Saturation, now I get this adjustment layer on top. I'm just going to double click to get back. If I take the saturation all the way down to 0, now I have a gray texture, and then I can put on top of it any color that I want. I'm just going to use the marquee tool to fill in, to just make a random color, and I'm going to fill that color in. Command D will deselect, and now I can change the blending mode. This is just because I showed you the thing in InDesign first, this is like InDesign, except that InDesign is really like this. And now I've just changed the color of this pink texture without actually changing it at all. Another way that we can do this is, instead of taking the saturation down, we can change the hue by moving this slider here, so that way this is another way to change the color. I think that doing it with the color on top gives you more control, because then you can actually choose the color that is on top, instead of with the sliders you kind of just have to play around with it until it looks like what you want. Anyway, once you have it as the color that you want, we can save this. So I'm going to hit Command Save. I'm going to save it to this folder that I've been working in, but sometimes I like to save things to the desktop to make it easier to find while I'm working on a project. So now I'm here, and let's say I want to bring that texture, the recolored texture, into InDesign. What I would do is go to File, Place, or hit Command or Control D, and then I can find my document and place it in. We can then move around the bounding box. Now I'm going to put this, I'm going to drag this underneath, so that way it is in the right space. So now what we have is, instead of that white canvas, we have this green fur. And so that's how you would use Photoshop to change the color of your textures and then bring it into InDesign. One of the best things about InDesign, actually, and I guess I'm saying this as a footnote even though it's kind of a big deal, is the links panel. So this textured Photoshop file still exists in Photoshop, and if I wanted to make any changes to it, like let's say I wanted to take the saturation of this down, and maybe change the hue a little bit. If I hit save, so if I save this file and then I go to InDesign, if I hit this, it will automatically update, and that's a really convenient thing because it makes it so you never have to re-put in a file. Anyway, so that's how you would add textures with colors into InDesign, kind of like a photographic element, which I'm going to get into in the next video.